we may have some more rumors for the NVIDIA RTX 50 series GPUs. Apparently, the performance uplift is going to be pretty significant. Now, we don't know exactly when it's going to come out. Who knows what NVIDIA is going to decide to do? But here are a couple of things you may not be aware of. Most likely, the 5080 and 5090 will come out first. Who knows exactly which order? And then later, we'll get something like the 5070 and the other GPUs, etc. Now, the performance uplift actually seems pretty amazing for these GPUs. According to, this came out on Red Gaming Tech. I don't know if it's a leak or exactly, so take it with a grain of salt, but we can at least speculate on if it would be true or not. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. The 5070, and you're going to want to wait for the 5090 and above. There's like a top secret potential GPU that could be pretty crazy. But first, let's talk about the 5070. The 5070 compared to the 4070 Super, maybe you're going to get something like a 26% uplift. Now, these GPUs are likely to use GDDR7, which is more efficient. It's thermally better than the existing modules for memory and VRAM. So even if you're not getting more than 12 gigabytes, for example, on a 5070, it should still be a lot faster, more efficient. They're going to be able to push it harder. So those things are all good for ray tracing, for higher resolution and things like that. So about a 26% uplift. I mean, while that's not staggering, that's usually what maybe you come to expect on certain generations, maybe 20% to 25%. That wouldn't be too bad. Obviously, it's going to depend on what the pricing is. If the pricing is, $599, like a 4070 Super, and you're getting 26% more and maybe some other benefits like DLSS 3 or whatever new version of that comes out, then that may be a pretty interesting GPU. Now, we have to talk about that first because most people are going to be able to buy a $600 GPU before they even get to the almost $2,000, 4090 or 5090. Now, that one is interesting, but then we step up to the next level. According here to Red Gaming Tech, a 4080 Super going to a 5080, now you're talking about a 29% uplift. Now, we don't know if this is just in rasterization or maybe some combination of rasterization as well as in, a DLSS or ray tracing performance. There's definitely a lot of details we don't know. So just saying flat out 29% in what exactly? It doesn't exactly tell us what, but if the overall performance happens to be around that neighborhood, once again, that's not that bad. I mean, look at the 4080 to the 4080 Super. We certainly did not get that big of a performance uplift. The only thing we really got was a reduction in price. Now, if a 5080 stays at $999 and it's 29% faster than a 4080 Super, I mean, that's a pretty good GPU. Then we're getting into the territory basically of a 4090. So with those numbers, 29%, I'm sure depending on the game and whatever its efficiency is, you may definitely beat a 4090, which is then, it's not too bad. It could be a very, very good GPU. So that's where we are for a potential 5080 and a 5070. 25 to maybe around 30%. Those numbers all seem relatively normal for a GPU generation, and it's better than only getting 10 or 15%. Even though it's funny, when we look at the 4090, that GPU had such a big uplift against the 3090 that it really was an impressive GPU. When it came out, everybody would see the big difference in the bar graphs and how much faster it was in most games. And that GPU actually ended up being a very successful GPU, both performance-wise as well as the amount that it sold. So now we get to the 5090, which is going to be presumably a pretty expensive GPU. You're talking about roughly, at least by his estimates here, 48% better than a 4090. Now, that is impressive. I mean, almost 50% better than a 4090. That's incredible. A 4090 already does even 4K pretty adequately. Obviously, you're not going to max out 4K with ray tracing with a 4090, but you can get very high frame rates depending on the game, especially coupled with DLSS 3 with frame generation. So that's certainly very interesting. 48% is pretty crazy. Now, if that GPU did come out at $1,599, same price as a 4090, 48% better, I don't see how it isn't an absolutely, bestseller for the high end, just like the 4090 was. And remember, that type of GPU, it's probably going to have a really beefy VRAM. It's probably going to be, obviously GDDR7, maybe 448-bit. So it's going to be a very, very wide memory bus. It's going to be a very powerful GPU. That means content creators and gamers are going to want it. AI, farms, and different workloads like that. Everybody's basically going to want to get a 5090, especially almost 50% better on average than a 4090. And if it comes in at that price, pretty crazy. That starts to get a little more substantial. But there is one more potential GPU that we've heard some murmurs, and they mentioned it here. That's a potential like Titan GPU or a Titan AI. Supposedly, this GPU would get as much as 63% better than something like a 4090. Now, something like that would be a bit unprecedented, at least for the last generation, because we didn't get a Titan GPU like we usually got with, the 10 series and the other GPUs in the past. And something like that would definitely be priced probably outrageously high, definitely way over the price of a 5090. So we're talking about way over $2,000, maybe close to $3,000 or more. Who knows? Something with that type of performance, 63% over 4090. Now that's super impressive. But it may not be necessarily the best choice for a gaming GPU. It may just have a really, a wide memory bus, maybe 512 or something like that. May have a lot of VRAM, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the most useful in gaming. It may be the best for, other workloads and productivity and graphical design. So I think the 5090 probably still is the high-end GPU to go to, with the 5080 being the more reasonable, super high-end GPU. By reasonable, I mean at least not $2,000. And with performance that may beat a 4090, that may be pretty interesting. But a Titan GPU over 63% faster than a 4090, if that is true eventually, that's going to be very interesting. I mean, that's some colossal performance. You'll be able to do 4K, maybe even higher resolutions with basically any setting you can imagine, and not even use upscaling in a lot of cases, unless you really need to do something with like path tracing or something like that. Then I'd imagine if you want to max out like a 240 hertz monitor, you definitely still will need some type of upscaling or something like that. But for a lot of games, something like 63% faster than a 4090, that's going to be quite impressive, but also very expensive. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about these performance numbers. Do you think they're going to be true or just rumors and maybe exaggerated? Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.